Look to the cookie, Elaine. Look to the cookie. Also, one other thing we learned from this episode. Ugh. You wish you had this coat. Gore-Tex. It's not really Gore-Tex, but I'm wearing it as a joke because I actually really like this jacket, and I always joke around and say it's my Gore-Tex jacket. And of course, this episode of Seinfeld, the dinner party, is where George wore a very thick-looking jacket out in the cold weather, and he said it was made of Gore-Tex. So I always call this my Gore-Tex jacket. How many times you hear George go, "Oh, you wish you had this coat. You wish you had this coat. Gore-Tex." Unfortunately, though, they had to get rid of the Gore-Tex jacket. But even though I'm in my bedroom, I'm still going to wear this coat for most of the review. So, the dinner party. To be perfectly honest, this is my favorite episode for some reason. Even though we just talked about the marine biologist, the stall, the conversion, we still got on this disc the pie, which was funny, and the stand-in that was great also. But for some reason, this disc always stood out to me growing up because this is the one that had the scene, of course, where, I got the idea of keeping track of how long it had been since the last time I had thrown up. Even though this was mentioned on an episode on the previous disc, June 29th, 1980 was the last time that Jerry had thrown up. Until this episode happened. And it had been 14 years since that happened to him, unfortunately. So the main story was that all four of them were invited to go to a dinner party. But of course, before they left, Elaine said we should probably bring something, which George was not behind. He's like, why do we gotta bring something? Because it's rude to not do so, which Elaine says, which, is a little... Elaine comes across as petty, but, her being a little considerate, even though it's a little out of character for Elaine, but, So they're driving in Kramer's car, but it's very cold out, and the heat don't work. So the plan was they were going to go, Jerry and Elaine were going to go to the bakery, and George and Kramer were going to go to the liquor store to get a bottle of wine. Well, for Jerry and Elaine, they faced several problems there. Whenever they got there, they got in line, they were planning on getting a chocolate babka, but then they were almost there, but then they realized they forgot to pick a number. Like you do if you go to a deli, you have to pick a number. So they see this other couple who they knew that they came before them, so they asked to grab their number. The couple refused, of course, to do so, but then they realized they were David and Robin. David and Robin, or what was? Oh, David and Barbara. I'm sorry, David and Barbara. They're people that they knew each other from. Then they were actually on their way to the dinner party also, and of course they got into an argument. And then, of course, as they're arguing, their number got called, and they got the chocolate babka, and that was the last one. So, of course, that infuriated Elaine. So then, of course, they pick a number, and then they're trying to figure out what to get. They thought, oh, carrot cake, dark forest. But then finally, they realized there's another babka called cinnamon babka. So Elaine gets a cinnamon babka, and then Jerry wants to get a black and white cookie. Now, apparently in real life, Jerry Seinfeld does not like black and white cookies. But as they're waiting for their cinnamon babka, Jerry's eating his black and white cookie, and he's telling her about how it's great, two colors come together, it's a good mix of vanilla and chocolate, and he's going, look to the cookie, Elaine, look to the cookie. And if people would just look to the cookie, all our problems would be solved and whatnot. So they were raving about it. But then when they get their cinnamon babka, Elaine, they're going to check out. Elaine opens up and notices that there's a hair on it. And then Jerry's like, oh my gosh, take it back. She's like, no. She goes, no, we've already waited a long time for this thing. We've got to get going. Jerry's like, no, take it back. So then Elaine goes and cuts in front of the line and tells the lady that they sold him a cake with a hair on. And then the lady tells Elaine she has to pick a number, in which Elaine flips out about. But then Jerry just, in the midst of it, just walks over, grabs a number, and Elaine's like, what are you doing? And then Jerry's like, I'm not going to this party with a cake with a hair on it. He goes, because I had a bad experience with a hair once when he was growing up. He said he once found a hair in his farina and he freaked out. He went running down the street saying, "There's a hair in my farina, it's a hair in my farina." So obviously, that's going on. And then later on, Jerry's stomach wasn't feeling good. He felt he was going to throw up. And then Elaine says, "Wait a minute, what about your vomit streak?" Which he just mentioned a few episodes earlier. And Jerry goes, "I know, I haven't thrown up since June 29th, 1980. And then there was a man with a cane who walked out, who had put his cane, and who when he was moving his cane, he placed it on top of Elaine's toe and hurt her toe. And the guy goes, "Sorry." And Elaine was like not happy about flipping out. And then Jerry though gets up and goes and starts going to the bathroom. And Elaine's like, where are you going?" And Jerry just goes, 14 years down the drain. This is the only reason why I love this episode. I mean, it's still a great episode, but I feel like it shouldn't be really as ranked high for me as good as the recent episodes, but it's still just that 14 years down the drain just gets me every time. And then of course Jerry came back out and Elaine goes, "Well, how was it?" And Jerry just goes, "Good as it gets." Then they got their corrected hairless cinnamon babka, even though the lady didn't have quite a cough. And Jerry's like, "Okay, that's good. You want to trade some hair in for some phlegm." So then they had to sit there and wait for George and Kramer to get back. Where were they? Well, they went to the liquor store. And they pick out a bottle of wine, but then Kramer doesn't have his wallet on him. He never carries his wallet around with him. Even though George said, "Well, how do you pay for stuff?" He goes, "I find my way around." So they go to check out, but George just has $100 bill. And the liquor store guy says he can't change that. So then Kramer just goes outside and screams out, "Hey, does anybody have change for 100?" Which George just like, "No, don't do that." And then he goes, "No, we'll just go to a newsstand and buy something there." And then, which of course, George was like, "I am not gonna buy something just to get change." So they go over to a newsstand, and the guys and they said, "Just get some gum or something." So they get a thing of gum. They get gum, and the guy goes, "What, 100? I can't change 100. You gotta buy more than that." So then Kramer adds in a Clark bar, and then the guy's like, "Keep going." A newspaper. Keep going. And I think maybe one or two other things, but then the last thing I think that finally got them to an amount where the guy can change them. Kramer grabs a penthouse, and George was like, "I'm not buying a penthouse." But then of course, that was enough. It was like $6.75 was the total, or something like that. It was enough for the guy to give them change for 100. So Kramer kept reading that penthouse. They go to the liquor store, they get the wine, but when they come out, their car is double parked. And it's still freezing outside. They sit, and then, of course, they go inside the liquor store, because, they're pissed off about, the car being double parked. But then, the guy in the liquor store said, this isn't a hangout. They told him to go outside, and they said that he doesn't work in the car, and his friend has getting hypothermia there. And he was freezing like crazy. So then the guy said, "Take it outside," but then they accidentally knock some wine bottles over, and they break. And that liquor store guy who was super cranky said, "You're paying for this," and the only way they were able to pay for those bottles of wine was for George to sell, this is where I'll take it off, his Gore-Tex jacket. So unfortunately, no more Gore-Tex. But this is where George also mentions that they're going to be in big trouble because of Elaine. And Kramer's like, "Why?" He goes, "I'm a little scared of her." And then Kramer's like, "You're scared of Elaine." And he tells some story about how one time she flipped out about him and did something with one of his hats or something like that. And of course, while they were waiting, of course, which is actually, I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. It was when they were, it was right before when Jerry's stomach started feeling bad, and they had gotten their updated cinnamon babka, and then Jerry was started complaining about his stomach. That's when Elaine said she was gonna, basically said she was gonna destroy George for making them wait for so long. So finally, of course, they're still waiting because they're still double parked. But then the guy who owns the car, and there was one or two people who did go to the car that George started yelling at. They're like, "It's not my car!" But in the end, it was a guy who I never knew if they were trying to say it was him or if they were implying it's a guy who looks like him. But it was a guy who they were supposed to be saying it was Saddam Hussein. But of course, obviously, they were too intimidated to confront him. The guy gets in the car and just goes, I wouldn't be out here outside of cold. You catch a cold so long, and they're just like, as he drives away. So obviously, if it was him for sure, or they at least believed it was, they were not going to try to tell him off because Anyways, but of course they finally get back, and then first they're asking Elaine, like, first they're trying to explain that they got double parked, they got stuck, they couldn't get out, they thought they seen Saddam Hussein and whatnot, and George goes, "What happened to your foot?" And then Elaine says, "Somebody put a cane on it, just like the cane I'm about to shove up your," and then okay, let's get going. And then they said, "So what'd you get?" And then Elaine goes, "Cinnamon babka." And George's like, "Oh, cinnamon. Why don't you get chocolate?" And then Elaine's about to snap, and then Jerry's like, "George, no, not the time." So they drive to the dinner party. They're already, fed up from the misadventures they had from, trying to, get stuff that it was Elaine's idea that they had to bring something. So they just went to the dinner party, knocked on the door, opened the door, gave them the stuff, and they said, "See ya," and they left. And that's it. Only really trivia I have is the guy who played Saddam, or at least the Saddam lookalike. Apparently, the actor they played him had a very thick accent, and you weren't able to understand the lines he was saying. So what they did was they had Larry David talk in an English accent, and they basically substituted his voice in for him instead, which I did not know that. That's pretty much it. Also, pretty much as far as this goes. But funny episode, like I said, just some crazy misadventures and some dumb luck again. And of course, unfortunately, Jerry's vomit streak came to an end. But I also don't understand. George is a little scared of Elaine, yet back in season 3, he was into her because of the stuff she left on Jerry's tape recorder. I don't know, no biggie, but that's that. And that's my thoughts on the dinner party episode, guys. The next episode, I believe, is the pie, where we learn that Poppy is a little sloppy. That one and the stand-in I'll probably record later on tonight. I'm getting ready to leave to go out to have dinner with my friends and my friend's mom for her birthday. So I'll hopefully get the other 2 reviews done tonight. Probably have to put off the Harry Potter videos until Monday, probably, but we'll see what happens. But that's going to do it, guys. What were your thoughts on the dinner party episode? What's your longest vomit streak? Me, I'll be honest, I have not thrown up since, knock on wood, I have not thrown up since November 3rd, 2005, when I got sick at school and did it in front of the janitor's office. But that's... It'll be 17 years this November, so it's 16 years. So I've outdone Jerry in my vomit streak, but knock on wood, of course. But again, guys, what were your thoughts on the dinner party episode? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And be sure as always to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter at DemandAirBoy93. I will see you guys in the pie episode. So until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch y'all later. Have a great rest of your day. And peace out, everybody.